A year ago, we came to Poland and we had an absolutely incredible CROSSFIRE contest with 4 of the best teams on the planet. Amazing action, seeing teams claw their way up from the bottom of the bracket to make it all the way to the grand final, and it was so much fun. We've decided to do it again. Welcome back to IEM Katowice, the world's biggest esports event, where we are live with the CROSSFIRE IEM Expo Invitational 2018. 4 incredible teams have joined us here. They include European teams who fought to qualify online during the last month. We have an invited team and a team you may know well if you follow CROSSFIRE, the reigning world champion, Super Valiant Gaming, I hear. They won it in December last year. They won this last March. They won the World Championships before that, and they are a deadly team and a real challenge. 4 teams to fight through a double elimination bracket. Let's show you how this is going to shape up today. We'll be having PENTA Sports against Flipside Tactics in our first match, and then XQ are going to take on SVG. It's double elimination, of course, so if you lose one match, you're not out, you'll get a second go. But ultimately, 2 teams will make it to our grand final later on today, and that best of 3 will settle who is going to be the IEM Katowice CROSSFIRE Invitational Champion. Let's tell you a little bit more about the 4 teams who are going to be competing for this. And let's do that with our incredible analyst desk. We have Kyle and Jordan, and they are with the amazing Lee Demon Smith.
Thank you very much, Matt. Surprised we could see you through all that smoke. There was a lot of smoke when you first came out there. But here we go, ladies and gentlemen. The CROSSFIRE Stars Invitational once again at the Intel Extreme Masters. Incredible stuff. We had 4 teams last year. We got 4 teams again. And Matt just mentioned it there. The reigning world champions, the undisputed world champions, are back once again. Super Valiant. You guys were in Australia. You're from Australia, but you were in China for the finals again in December, and once again they dominated.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think they were really, they did get challenged a little bit, but they were, as you said, undisputably the best team there. They 3-0'd the grand final of the grand finals. They did the same last year or the year before that. So, I mean, realistically speaking, this is the best team in the world. We're expecting them coming into this tournament to also probably look like the best team here as well.
So let's talk about the team, because obviously there might be a lot of guys that are unfamiliar with a CROSSFIRE or the teams themselves. Obviously, CROSSFIRE is a MR9 game, max rounds 9. That means, of course, first to 10 is the winner. There is no economy, so it is basically everybody with the guns. But I want to talk about Super Valiant. You just mentioned them. Obviously, they dominated in China, but let's talk about the players, because they've, we mentioned they're world champions. They've been world champions multiple times. You've got Emzin and WQ on there, 4 times world champions. I think 18 is a 3 times world champion. You've got N9, 2 times world champion. And you've got the new guy, Akko, obviously replaced Formi, who's also now a world champion. These guys have been there, done it, and literally got the T-shirts.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you talk about a champion team versus a team of champions. Well, this is kind of both of those mashed together. Emzin and WQ, like you said, those 2 players with incredible amounts of experience. We've seen them around the CROSSFIRE scene for so long. And then, of course, you add a player like N9, who, statistically speaking, throughout last year was the best player in the world. They just have the recipe for success as a team, and that cohesion that comes together as well. Having played together for so long, they're going to be a very, very difficult team to beat here.
Yeah, N9, I remember, he was coming through. He was the baby of the team when I was in China last year, 2 years ago now. Time has flown past very fast.
I mean, he still kind of technically is, because these guys are all still much, much older than him, have been around much longer than him, but he has developed so much as a player.
Yeah, he's become basically what most consider the best in the world, I believe. Alongside, obviously, you got legend like Emzin and WQ. That's a pretty big ass. But Kyle, these guys have been beaten before. It's possible to take them down.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just looking at their track record, sure, they have been the #1 team consistently across the board, but there's definitely been some struggles there. The first one was back in Vietnam. They lost to Black Dragons Brazil, and then in the group stages of CROSSFIRE Stars, they also fell to Set to Destroy, but despite that, they've had the resilience to still come back and be the dominant team overall.
Yeah, so what is it we think that can upset them? Do we think it's early groups? Do we think it's like jitters? Do you think it's focus? What is it that makes them fall?
It shouldn't be any of those things, should it, really? Because they are such an experienced team. They shouldn't be getting jitters on the big stage because they've played on the world stage so many times. They shouldn't be getting jitters early on in the tournaments because they've played so many tournaments, so many big tournaments as well. Honestly, I think it's probably just coming down to a lapse in concentration or perhaps even overconfidence. They know that they're the best and they expect to win all of these tournaments quite easily. And if you come into a tournament like that, there are still good teams that are going to be able to challenge them, like we saw SCDX being able to do. And SCDX did, as far as we're concerned, kind of have a bit of a dream run, actually, at the last Grand Finals. For them to be able to do that against SV and then continue on so far deep in that tournament was a great performance from them. But honestly, I think SV probably should have been able to dispatch of them. Unfortunately, they weren't able to do that, but they did manage to go on and win the tournament anyway. And I think that's kind of representative of the SV that we'd be expecting to see. It's just those lapses in concentration that are probably going to come back and bite them in the butt a little bit.
Is there any particular map weakness they maybe have? Because they lost on Subbase to Set to Destroy, didn't they?
Yeah, they lost 10-5 to Set to Destroy, which was a pretty crazy, unexpected map for them to actually pull away with. But I think overall, it's going to be up to SV and whether or not they actually decide to ban that map, because I think they might actually go for it as more of a confidence pick and maybe show in their first match that if they can win on Subbase, that's going to put a huge threat just on their back across the board.
Yeah, I should explain it. It is a single ban from each team, and then it's a straight randomizer, so it is a chance they may pull it away. Bearing in mind, Subbase is a very strong map for both Penta and Flipside, or historically, I should say.
The thing
Jordan,
is,
one more thing?
If they are able to win that game, if they are able to win a map early on in this tournament on Subbase, then that really opens up the map pool for them. I mean, then that really puts that second sort of doubt in the mind of all the other teams. Like, okay, they're probably coming into this saying, if we go up against SV and if we can get onto Subbase, great. But if that's no longer an option, then kind of where do you go? Because SV is such a dominant team on every other map.
Yeah.
And if you add that fifth map, you're like, well, now we're backed into a corner. We've got nowhere to go.
I personally expect to see a lot of Mexico bans against them because they're incredibly strong on that. But let's talk about their opponents. Obviously, it's not going to be the first game of the day, but they are a very new team. It is the new Spanish team. They've basically knocked out the guys that actually reached the final here in the qualifiers on their run. Intense. So what do we know about these guys? Because they are a fairly newly formed outfit.
Yeah, a very newly formed outfit indeed. 3 of these players have actually never played on a LAN before, so that's kind of a bit of a question mark for all of us, really. We haven't seen them before.
But we had that last year, right?
Yeah.
We had the exact same thing. We were like, oh, these guys, they've never been on LAN. But you always have that underdog thing. They've got nothing to lose. You just go for it.
I think that's what this team is really coming into this one, because we don't know so much about them as a unit. We're going to have to come in and say we're probably not expecting amazing things out from them, but there is always that potential, particularly when you've got players like Thunder and Loons on this roster, 2 very, very experienced players. So you've got a nice mishmash of kind of experience and new blood coming into these into this competition. Whether or not Thunder and Loons are going to be able to, I guess, guide these guys through this tournament, that's the question that we're going to have to answer throughout the rest of the day.
So let's move on to what's going to be our first games of the day. It is the big European clash that's pretty much happening in every Crossfire game I've ever certainly come across. Every finals we have in Europe, it's always these guys. It is Flipside versus Penta. Now, if you have followed Crossfire a lot or have watched either last year here at the Expo or Gamescom or maybe in Crossfire Stars Worlds or the Worlds before that, you may recognize pretty much all of these players. But they have a thing where they like to change teams a lot.
Yeah.
They mishmash all over the place. So let's go to Flipside first. Let's talk about these guys. Obviously, they were at Worlds, or whatever you want to call it, Crossfire Stars Grand Finals in China. They qualified through at Gamescom and they went there once again. This year, not as successful as the year before, because last year they reached the Grand Final, of course.
Yeah, they didn't really even get close to doing that this year. And I think for those guys, it was a bit of a difficult sort of a time to be there, really, in that team, because they would have been expecting much better results, and they didn't quite get there. They didn't get where they wanted to. And as a result, we have seen a lot of roster changes. A couple of their players have gone to Penta. A couple of them are still there in Flipside. We've still got Seven and Blame on this Flipside team that we see here at this event. But out of those core players that have come through from the Grand Finals last year, we've only got 2 out of 5 coming through to this event. So in the space of, a few months, the team's pretty much completely changed.
Well, what do you make of this, Carl? Because obviously you're heavily involved in the scene. You've obviously covered with Set to Destroy. But what is it in the team that fundamentally makes you think, okay, we've finished that, we're going to change once again? Is it chemistry? Is it skill? Is it what is it forcing these guys to constantly roster shuffle?
I think a lot of it stems from they just had a lot of heartbreak after losing the Set to Destroy in the quarterfinals of Crossfire Stars in 2017. I think that's what led to a lot of these shuffles that we've seen.
Just because they lost to America.
Right, and it's not a situation that they've ever really been in. They consistently beat them on those lands, and for them to lose to a team they expected to beat going into that match, I think that kind of took them back and made them rethink their strategies going into future events. But another big thing to look at too is, out of these rosters, the only team that has full 5 tested players in the European side is Penta. I mean, you've got Jin and 40, who've been pretty silent in terms of their land presence for Flipside, and Vise, he was a little bit quiet as well. He stepped back after CFS 2016 and took that coaching role on for Flipside. So I think it's going to be a true test for those newer rosters to go up against Penta, because they do have those very solid 5 players who've got, I'd say, statistically the best chances, I think, looking at a matchup between the European teams.
Yeah, so let's talk about Penta. Let's get it down into Penta, because they've not been the team. I remember back in 2017, 2016, whenever it was, for the qualifiers, they were the team everybody expected to go through. Flipside upset them, and obviously have been there the last 2 years now. But Penta were predominantly before that always the stronger team.
Exactly. In 2015, Penta was the team that from Europe did get through to the CrossFire Stars 2015 Grand Finals. They were second place there to HG Longzhou. Now, this is obviously not a roster that has maintained all the way through to this point. The only player actually from that team that is here today is FaZe. And you know, he's been joined by Snox, who was on Flipside in the last Grand Finals, the 2017 Grand Finals. For me, actually, I think he was the strongest individual player on that roster, so I think that's a good pickup here for Penta. But looking at the entire roster, like you said, Kyle, they are looking like probably the best of the rest, I'm going to say, here at this event. Obviously, speaking of SV, we're thinking they're going to be the strongest team here, but I think Penta's going to be the one that, if anyone's going to be able to challenge him, it's probably going to be Penta.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about FaZe, because he has been around for a very long time. Is he a player, do you think, that the likes of Super Valiant would respect in a lineup, you know, when they're coming up against them?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, looking at FaZe, he's got the best track record of any player in Europe, really. If you look at the 2015 and 2016 European rosters that did so well, he's the only player that was on both of those, so he has that strength behind him. And, I mean, Flipside's got to be scared of him, too, because looking without him in 2017, they weren't able to go as far. So I definitely think there's going to be a lot to see from FaZe and what he brings to that Penta roster this time.
So let's talk about the maps. Let's get into that, because obviously we touched on it briefly. It is, as I say, a veto process. We're going to have Flipside and Penta facing off in the first game. There's a small 5-minute delay, I've just been told, so we can get down and gritty on the maps on these guys. Now, where do we go? Obviously, Port is a big favorite of some of these. Subbase is a massive favorite, I would say, in Europe. I would expect that one to be certainly left out. I would guess they're going to be banning out Mexico. Where else would they go with those bans? Because you get one single ban each.
Exactly. That's the hard thing, isn't it, really? Because you have to be like, okay, any of these 3 remaining maps we could potentially play. It is down to that randomizer. Now, we've said both Flipside and Penta are quite good on Subbase, but are they both going to be comfortable leaving it through when they both know that they're quite good on the opposite? It's very, very hard to say, so I'm not sure whether we're going to see one team get rid of it. For example, who's got the first ban? Are they going to be baited into banning away Subbase in favor of another map? It's really kind of a mind game between these two.
Yeah, for me, I think it's going to be actually a Black Widow ban coming out from Flipside, because when we saw them on IEM last time around, they did so poorly against ESC back then, and I think they may still be a little bit shooken up from that, and they don't want to risk a pick they have a tendency to be sort of inconsistent on. So I think for Flipside, it's really about getting the map that they can feel the most comfortable on going into this one, because in theory, Penta should be the stronger team if you look at these players.
Yeah, because that was the big surprise last year, ESC taking them down in the first game. I would say SQ Intense have got a little harder task this time. They're up against Super Valiant. They haven't got that European opposition. I should take you through the format. Obviously, if you missed the start of the show, Matt did show the brackets on your screen, but it is basically a winner goes through, except it's kind of like this weird double elimination. It's hard to explain. So winner of the first game and the winner of the second game, which is obviously going to be Intense versus Super Valiant, will face each other in game number 3. Game number 4 will be the 2 losers who slip down, and then the loser of the winners faces the winner of the losers, and it gets a little complicated. But we'll take you through it. You can see the brackets on your screen now. We'll take you through the day as we get there, and of course, it is going to be best of 1 all the way through until the finals, which will be a best of 3. So, come on then. Does anybody think Super Valiant is not going to win this?
No, they're going to win.
Come on.
I think their
just a little
only
glimmer of hope of anyone
is if somebody can take them in the best of 1s. I think they get to that best of
knock
grand
them down
final.
And maybe surprise, yeah.
Right, because best of 1, we've seen them falter the most, I think. So if someone wants to beat them, they really have to take them out early. And I think Penta and Flipside kind of know that. They don't want to go all the way to the grand finals. They want to see these guys go out in the lower bracket.
Yeah.
That's really their only chance here.
Because if I think back to the 2016 finals, the grand finals, when Flipside played them, while they lost 3-0 overall in the best of 5, all 3 maps were incredibly close. I mean, I believe they went overtime, I want to say, on Black Widow, maybe. or was it sub-base? I'm sure they went overtime in one of their maps. It was a few years ago, guys. I got to test my memory.
Yeah, I believe it was sub-base, and those guys, again, showing that that is a weakness for SV, and I think SV, they're still going to try and take on that map here. I wouldn't say it's out of the question for them. Like I was saying before, it could be a big confidence play, especially against arguably the weaker of the 3 European teams, to pull out that sub-base first and hope for it. That way they can maybe show the threat against Flipside and Penta in the future, and maybe they won't be so quick to try and draw sub-based against them.
Yeah, so Jordan, what are your thoughts? Where do you see it? I mean, you just said Super Valiant, no problem.
I don't see it. That's the thing. Yeah. I mean, like you said, if it's going to happen anywhere, it's going to happen in the best of ones. If they get to the best of 3, which I suspect that they probably will, there's not really much of a chance as far as I'm concerned. We've seen very, very strong competition at the 2017 Grand Finals. I feel as though probably even stronger competition than what we've got here in terms of going up against Super Valiant. So they didn't really have too many struggles there. Yes, they did lose that one map against STDX. I'm going to call that a bit of a blip in the radar. Don't think that that's anything to read too much into. I don't think it's going to happen again here for Super Valiant. I think they're going to come away here without even dropping a single map.
So obviously we've got a little time to fill here. So let's talk about the Worlds, what actually happened at the Grand Finals. What is it that's making Super Valiant so dominant? Because not only obviously in, say, the Western scene, they're dominating the teams. They're dominating scenes in the Eastern scene, in the Chinese scene in themselves, which is where, like, the heartbeat of CROSSFIRE is.
I mean, really, it comes down to, we've already talked about the individual players. I think N9, you know, so many times we've said, is the best player in the world. Having a player like that, we'll see, I'm sure, in some of these matches here, is going to be paying dividends for a team like Super Valiant. But not only N9, if he's having an off day, which he rarely does, you've still got that massive backup of players.
Jordan, they could get jet lagged. We could always hope. We could always hope they'd be jet lagged.
And I was up at 5 a.m. I've been ready to go all day.
Which means they're going to be ready to go in the start, but when we get the finals,
but that's okay.
maybe.
They've got the buffer of the best of 3. I think they're going to be okay. But yeah, like I said, if N9 has problems, you've got Emson. He was having some incredible clutch rounds throughout the Grand Finals last year. WQ, great support player. Again, so many multi-frags coming out from him holding onto bomb sides, particularly on the defensive side. And of course, 18 and Ank to round out the roster. Both of those guys also, again, playing a little bit more of a supportive kind of a style. But when you've got N9, you've got Emson, and you've got WQ really popping off, I mean, you don't really need to be the one going and getting the frags.
So let's go through the roles. We got, like I say, we're filling here, so we're waiting for the games to get ready. They're going to be on stage in a few. Is Emson still rocking the sniper? I assume so. I assume nobody's rose to the challenge yet to say, do you mind stepping down? You know, 4 times world champion. Do you mind not doing this?
The thing I love about Emson is that not only can he take that sniper, you know, sometimes we do see some very one-dimensional players in that they take the sniper and they're an awesome sniper, but when they get put back on the rifles, or if they decide to go and play with the rifle, doesn't necessarily work out too well for them. Honestly, I got to say, I actually think Emson looked better with the rifles at the Grand Finals last year than he did with the sniper, which is kind of a big thing to say, but he was just dominating everyone.
So let's talk about the European boys. Is Seven still sniping, or has he now been pulled away from that? Is FaZe still sniping out there? Has he been pulled away from that? Because obviously we're talking about, you know, roster changes, roles change in those roster changes.
Sure, and I think for Penta, FaZe is definitely going to be their go-to sniper, but I think the one advantage that Flipside has is they have a lot of players who can consistently bring out that as well and do a lot of work with it. I mean, we've seen, in the past, I've seen Jin and 40 both snipe, and honestly, anyone on this roster, I think, could actually do it, and I think we may see actually some double sniper setups come out from Flipside as well because of that accessibility they do have.
So for that point, maybe pushing towards Port. I'm trying to think like the best positions where you can throw those multi-sniper rolls in.
Yeah, Port would probably be the best map to do that on. The only thing they have to worry about, though, is from what I've seen, that's one of Penta's stronger maps because they love to play FaZe in that A-top or mid-control position where he can really get the range on them, and I think they really have to shut him down if they want to take on a map like Port.
It was close. I seem to recall Port at Gamescom. It was a very close game between the two. But obviously there was a third team involved there, which is also a mix of the conglomerate of teams which has carried on throughout Europe. Let's talk about the scene in general. I was just mentioning about China. Obviously they've had the CROSSFIRE Stars, they've had leagues, etc. Do we see any teams out there? I mean, I was mentioning Pacific Macta coming out of obviously Manila. That team certainly put challenges in the year before, but they kind of faltered this year.
Well, I mean, I'm a big fan of Pacific Macta as well. I really like not only the team itself, but I think the fan base behind Pacific Macta as well is very, crazy, I would say, is maybe a good way of putting it, because they love that team and they really get behind them. But I wouldn't say they necessarily faltered actually at these finals. Again, they came in 3rd place, which is 3 years running actually, if I'm not mistaken, for this roster. So that's a fairly decent result. Obviously, you'd be thinking, okay, why haven't they been able to convert this? They've been there every single time, nipping at the heels of the first team, of the best teams, but they've never quite been able to convert it into a victory. Yes, there's that question mark, but to be able to consistently place in 3rd every single year in a row is a testament to how strong of a team they are. And I would have loved to have seen them at an event like this, because I think they are one of the teams that maybe on their best day can challenge Super Valiant, but obviously they're not here. But I do love that team.
Did they meet Super Valiant in semi-finals?
No.
No, they didn't this time. Okay,
it was STDX actually.
Well, they got no excuse. No excuse for not being here. Kyle, what do we think? Obviously, you've been covering the NA scene for a long time. What teams out there are you thinking that maybe could challenge the dominance of Super Valiant right now? Because you talked about, obviously, the Brazilians, and we haven't mentioned the Brazilians because they have put in performances in the past. You said that they're the only team that's really challenged Super Valiant in a finals before.
Yeah, and the Brazilians, they kind of got the short end of the deal when it came to CFS this year. I mean, they played SV, first team in their group, and then because SV lost a set to Destroy in the next, they played them in the lower as well. So
right, yeah.
They just had to play them twice, which was an unfortunate way to go down, but I still think they're going to be a strong team moving forward. But another team to look at is definitely Ava team from Vietnam. They've done tons of work. I mean, they got 2nd place in the last grand finals as well. They did struggle against SV, but they weren't even predicted to make the top 4. They took down one of the other greats of China. They took down HG, which nobody expected. They kind of just counted them out of that match and thought they were going to go down in the quarters, but they pulled through, took down HG, and then set to Destroy to get themselves into the finals.
Yeah, I was a big fan of Eva team as well, actually. They're, for me, very individually skilled. When you look at those players, you think any kind of an aim duel that they're going to be able to take, or that they decide to take, they're probably going to have a fairly good chance of winning that one. I think that was part of the reason, or the majority of the reason as to why they got so deep in that tournament. I don't think it was down to necessarily so much strategical depth like what we would have seen from some of the other teams, but just man for man, their individual prowess was pretty on point.
Yeah, okay. All right, what else can we touch on? We've pretty much gone through just about everything we can think of here. Anything else, Kyle? Kyle, come on, Kyle. You and Danny, you're my go-to guys in the CROSSFIRE scene. What is happening right now in the rest of the world that is going to surprise us?
I think the big thing is going to be seeing these other teams emerge from regions that have gotten more and more dominant. So if you look at especially the Philippines, there's not just Pacific there. There's tons of teams.
Well, there's Pacific
that are very
as well.
strong. And
the sister team.
And there's actually another team from the Philippines. They're playing in CFPL right now. So
right.
I think they could emerge very strong as well. And then set to Destroy after this past 4th place finish, they're going to be reevaluating their roster. They have a new 5th coming in, and they're getting pretty strong as well. So I think going into the rest of this year, there's going to be a lot of new teams we could see emerge and fight for that top spot. And honestly, I think PENTA could be one of those teams now that they've sort of snatched who they want to be sort of the dream team for Europe. And I think they're going to be a huge force to be reckoned with as well.
And historically, of course, the Vietnamese scene has usually been pretty strong as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're going to have to see. I think, obviously, we've seen a lot of roster changes coming through for the majority of teams from 2017 into 2018. So when we kind of look at the scene as a whole, I think we're still going to see Chinese dominance from SV. But in the last few years, having watched the global scene, I've kind of felt like China as a region has gotten not necessarily weaker, but the other teams are starting to catch up, it feels like.
Power shift with the rest, not Super Valiant, but everybody else.
Super Valiant is still up there as #1, but like if you kind of take it as maybe a cycling sort of
analogy. It used to be like the top 4 or 5 of China would dominate.
And the peloton is coming back up here with the rest of the world. I mean, Europe is starting to look pretty good, or has looked pretty good. Even America had a very, very good performance. NA, I suppose I should say, not just America, had a very good performance last year at the grand finals. I didn't expect to see SCDX doing that well, but if they can continue that form, like you said, Kyle, coming into this year, maybe we then see them start to challenge someone like Super Valiant. I mean, it is still, for me, maybe a little bit of a question as to whether anyone's going to be able to do it this year, but it's an interesting time in the global stage of CROSSFIRE where everyone's starting to catch up now, and hopefully someone's going to be able to give us some good games up against Super Valiant.
So 2018 is the time to watch.
Yeah.
It's really to keep your eyes on it, guys. If you are unaware of CROSSFIRE, and there might be, like I say, quite a few people that there is, who knows, it's massive in the eastern scene, probably not so much in the western scene, which is obviously why we're here. We still have had the predominant, I would say, same players at the top level, but then again, that tends to happen in most games.
Yeah.
Do we see any rising stars? Especially, let's look at America. Is there any rising stars in there that you'd like to see getting in those big teams?
The problem with the NA scene right now is pretty much everyone tries to pull themselves into Set to Destroy when they recognize that they are good enough to potentially be on the #1 roster. So there's definitely also a lot of divide between sort of the 2nd to 4th teams because there's certain players that just don't interact well with each other. And I think if they could sort of get over their differences and assemble a team of the best outside of Set to Destroy, there could be a new North American dominant team emerging, but until they sort of move past that, I don't think we're going to see a new NA team emerge as the first place team in North America.
The classic case of teams not quite getting on, chemistry not working well. There's two teams that have been clashing over the years in Europe. Matt Andrews is on the stage waiting to introduce them.
Thank you very much, Kyle, Jordan, and Lee, for taking us through the history of these teams. And as they said, yeah, there's quite a lot of history between them in this first match. Yeah, it's a real scrap that we've come to know and love in CROSSFIRE. Two European teams from two big organizations who know each other so well. They both compete out in China in the CROSSFIRE Pro League over there. We've seen them face each other again and again. One of them beat the other to qualify for one World Championships, and then it went the other way for the next one. It's a grudge match, and it's going to be an absolutely fantastic one. And let's get those two teams to the stage. Starting with, welcome, Flipside Tactics. Jin, VZ, Blame, 7 and 40. They are Flipside Tactics. And their opponents to give us this incredible match to start off the CROSSFIRE IEM Expo Invitational 2018. Please welcome to the stage, PENTA Sports. Creeds, MLS, FaZe, Moon, and Snox. They are PENTA Sports. Yeah, we are going to get the CROSSFIRE IEM Expo Invitational 2018 underway live for you here in Poland at the biggest esports event in the world with an absolute thriller of a game. Flipside Tactics against PENTA Sports. Remember, all of our games today are a best of one until we get to our best of 3 grand final later on today. One of these teams may well be in it, maybe both of them if they fight their way through the bracket. Let's get into this and find who's going to take the shortcut though. PENTA, Flipside Tactics, back with Kyle, Jordan and Lee.
Thank you very much, Matt. So, okay, we're on to the games at last. This is where we wanted to be. The question is, where do we go? We're hitting it briefly early on. The map vetoes are going to be coming through in just a moment. It is going to be best of 1, as Matt just pointed out. Now, there's obviously a map pool of 5. It means only 2 teams have 1 ban each. And it does, of course, randomize for those 3. In the random shuffles, what would these teams prefer to leave open?
I mean, I still think like Subbase is probably going to be in there as one of those maps. So 1 out of 3. You were saying Black Widow is probably going to be vetted away, so probably expecting to see that one taken out of this pool at the very least.
Yeah, I think Black Widow will definitely be the ban from Flipside. PENTA, it's really hard to tell because they're probably the most consistent team across the board, but I think a sub-base ban could actually come out from them because that's one of the few maps I think they're going to be almost too close for comfort on.
Okay.
I think in the side of PENTA, they're going to be wanting to draw probably Port or Mexico.
All right. Okay. What are the reasons? Why? Why? Come on. You can't just say, you can't just name a map. I want a full-blooded roster rundown. Let's get the guys on the screen now. You can see them Flipside. So we've talked about these. We've talked about the shuffles. They've been here, there, and everywhere. 7, Blame, Jin, Vise, and 40. Vise and 7 obviously been around. Blame as well. Jin's been in a number of teams. These guys have just bounced around for years between the two teams.
Yeah, 7 and Blame, the 2 guys coming through from the flip side that we saw last year at the Grand Finals, as those 2 core players coming through, Vice, Jin, and 40, the ones joining them. So it is, like you said, or like we have said a little bit earlier on, a relatively new amalgamation of players, but these are all players that have been around in the scene for a fair while.
Do we have a similar situation where the middleman is the shot caller? Because I'm seeing a different setup there. That's normally you'd expect to see Vise or 7 in there. He's not there this time around.
Well,
Penta, of course, on the other side, they are the opponents, and I can see a famed man in the middle. FaZe is in the middle, so I wonder if he's going to be calling the shots for them. I would expect so. Let's get Penta's roster. You can see it is FaZe, NLS, Moon, Snox, and Mason. Mason being the new guy, I guess, or certainly the newer name to me.
Yeah, looking at these guys, it's really going to be up to FaZe and Snox, I think, in this matchup. They're consistently the two stronger players on the Penta roster, and if they can bring what they normally do to the table, it's going to be very rough for Flipside going into this one.
FaZe and Snox were the two that stood out to me in 2016 CFS Grand Finals, certainly to that extent. The game apparently is ready, which is interesting because we don't even know what the map is yet. So this could be a surprise to all of us. Because nobody has told us in here the veto's gone through, and we're just like, surprise, here's a map!
Yep.
I guess we're all going to be as excited. I'm trying to catch a glimpse of the screen, make out what it is. I can't really see the screen from here. It's
Ankara.
All right, okay, here we go. Well, okay, we're going to just explain it. We're going to do 4 on TriCast here, and we're just getting straight into the game. So, Kyle, Jordan, take it away. I'll join in.
All right, fair enough. Well, Penta Sports starting off on the attack first off. Flipside going to be sitting back on the defense just for now. Again, a very long round timer, 2.5 minutes, so it does give a lot of an opportunity for that attacking side.
Especially
really
as the first game, I would say. It's definitely things are going to just go like, okay,
yeah,
let's just go steady here. Let's just work our way through. No need to rush through, but it's going to be a straight, quick engage as they try and push on through into B site. Going to get around. As you can see, Jin and 7 in there. 7 just off the side. He's going to peek around the side, but FaZe manages to take them both down. 40, the last man standing in a very quick start from Penta.
Already FaZe with 3, definitely proving his dominance already in this one. 40 is going to be left in a 1-on-3 retake. Not a very likely story here to go his way. Already flanked by FaZe there. That's 4 for him in the first round. And a great way to start things off for Penta there.
So, first round, easy start. B rush, effectively. We were talking about, the 2.5 minute timer. You can have a nice time to build it up. But now, okay, are they going to try and rush it? Are they going to try and build on this and just pile in? It does look like the 4 people are rushing straight into B. You can see they're backing away instantly. Vice getting himself in a little position, but they're probably going to slow things down and maybe go for the panic, and that certainly will stop them in their tracks as NLS goes down to play.
I was going to say, I did like what Penta was doing there. A lot of early utility use just to force those players back into the site, deny some control of the map for Flipside, but then we just go and see NLS throw away his life and gives an advantage over to Flipside, which is exactly what they would have wanted. They want to bite back here with a round after dropping that first one. Don't let Penta get off to an easy first sort of few rounds or so. Keep them working for these rounds.
Right now, looks like they're going to go potentially for the B hit here, but it's interesting to see Flipside. They've already adjusted. The first round they played very safe, but now they're going for heavy mid control, having 2 players on the catwalk here and one just playing towards that mid double doors. Has got them a lot of control in the situation here to really read where this bomb plant may go down, and with that 1-man advantage, I definitely think Penta's going to have a rough time on the execution here.
Just a clear peek on 40 as he flicked past there, but didn't get picked off. You can see he's going to get a look across the Snox. Can't manage to land anything and got away very luckily there, I feel. But now we're going to see a heavy push. Snox comes around, gets Vice, can get the second as well as Jin gets pushed down. And Penta once again driving in, but 7 comes around, gets a quick triple, and Creeds is left on his own.
Good individual plays out there from 7, one of these experienced players on the Flipside roster. And he's going to get 4 for that round as well. 5 and 1 is where he sits himself there. I was going to start lauding Snox after his double kill there and say, wow, great performance out from Snox. He's really opened this round up for Penta. But now you're going to have to talk about 7, I think, after that one. And, well, we're back to 1 apiece. Penta and Flipside. Not much between them right now.
Right now it is going to be NLS here working for the mid pick already. But right now it looks like Penta, they're a little bit more passive this time around, almost fearing that mid control. But Flipside, they've reverted back already. They're not going for too much heavy control in mid. They're going to be back to having 2 on that B bomb site. And Penta are going to be left here potentially having to go here up cat.
Snox is going to try and creep around. You can see NLS, they're going to try and flash in, push, but it's not going to work out. 40, you can see, wasn't fully flashed out there. Didn't quite hit the mark, but NLS and Snox breach the way in. And it's a simple trade. 1 for 1 as Snox lands a beautiful second shot. Gets 7 down. And is that going to clear the danger? Vice gets picked off easily. Snox is rocking it right now as he pushes through, and Jin, the last man standing.
Yeah, okay, so I don't feel too bad about talking a little bit about Snox after that one, because now he's gone and done it again. He's got a couple of kills there once more, and I do think that he's going to be the player here for PENTA that's really going to open things up. Gets the final kill there as well, so 3 for him in that round. 6 and 2.
Four in the
Well, there you go.
So Snox has quickly answered back to a 7. Look, they're both 6 and 2. Incredible start from the 2 players. As we see them lined up there, PENTA got a little bit of work to do. Some certainly very good start from them. I believe we just lost game, which is why we're looking at their faces, which is I'm expecting to be back on your screen in a second. There is a problem, apparently. It's going to come back to us. Okay, we're not even going to look to them. But flip side, it does look like they're playing, so it's obviously the observers just...
Well, someone's dead on flip side.
To bomb out. Yeah, I can see. Well, either that or he's just really lazy gaming.
Yeah.
We can try and go by where the mouse moved, which you can see is obviously dead in the middle. Everybody else seems to be certainly alive, so it looks like a 4-on-5. As Vise, I'm looking for seeing who's going to be doing the talk. Who's the talker on the team? See, talking on the far left here. Very quiet on the middle. Oh,
looks to me like everyone on PENTA's still alive.
No, it's a 4-on-4. Look at him down the end. Oh no, you're right. It's a 5-on-4, so it's a slow round. Luckily for us, because we're commentating off thing. I mean, you could at least try and spin a camera and maybe face the screen. That would be nicer for us. But PENTA picked up the round. You can
3-1.
So 3-1, yeah.
Not sure how that round went out.
I mean, it was a great round. What do you mean?
I'm going to say Snox got a 5K in that round. I've been talking about him all game.
An ace from Snox.
Wow, what an amazing round from Snox.
Yeah, so obviously there is a, judging by the headset off.
Pause.
Pause? He's obviously got comms issues by the looks of it. Or he's talking into the mic. Or... Oh, they have a tactical pause maybe. No, headset off. All headsets off.
But so far, a good start for PENTA. I mean...
An absolute brilliant start for them. I mean, Snox is on fire.
Not to mention, the only round that Flipside's actually managed to pick up so far, assuming PENTA did win that last one, was the individual play out from 7, which was... Yes, they did get the opening pick in that round, did Flipside, but it looked like Kyle said, PENTA was going to make a decent inroad into that bomb site, had 7 not come away with that triple kill.
I feel he got a little lucky. Caught 2 of them reloading, didn't he? Because they just had that big exchange and then he swung in.
Exactly.
Straight away. Caught 2 of them reloading. Yeah, I mean, you could argue it's perfect timing. Obviously knew they were going for the reload. So I think it certainly worked out for him. But clearly a computer issue, judging by the look in his face. The exasperated look. That's the usual look of what is going on?
Yeah.
Kyle, what do you make of those? I would say first 4 rounds, but we didn't really see the fourth one.
I think it's really going to be about Flipside shutting down FaZe and Snox in this situation. They're consistently putting the numbers up in these early round picks, and if they can't shut that down, this could be a pretty overwhelming first match to go the way to PENTA. But Flipside, I think their biggest issue right now is they're almost giving too much respect over to the guys on PENTA. You saw the round in B where 7 wasn't afraid to get a little aggressive. It paid off for him, and I think if they can continue to show that burst aggression on their CT side here, they could have a better chance.
And we should mention, obviously, we were talking about right at the start, that obviously the winner of these are going to play the winner of Super Valiant versus Intense. We're expecting that to be Super Valiant unless Intense pull off a massive surprise, which would be epic proportions. But that in itself is like your one chance really to take Super Valiant down, because once you go into a best of 3 territory, most likely against them, it gets a lot harder.
Yeah, well, I mean, there is that unrealistic possibility that Super Valiant comes out here and loses 2 best of 1s and gets knocked out before they do get to that best of 3. I feel as though that's not going to happen.
I remember they had a really bad day at Manila. CROSSFIRE Invitational Manila. Well, no, it wasn't. It was HG, wasn't it?
18 was on that roster, I'm pretty sure.
I think he was. It was before the Vici Gaming acquired the players, acquired the super team, as it were.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like we've been talking about for these Chinese teams, we always come into every single event saying China's probably going to come away with the victory. They have traditionally been the best region, the strongest region, but that's not to say that they're untouchable. I mean, there has been instances in the past, like you said, they're in Manila, they did lose a match. We've seen Super Valiant drop to Black Dragon in a best of 3. We've seen them drop to SCDX very recently as well, in a best of 1. So it's not out of the realms of possibility here, but just judging by the numbers and looking at the past history, you still have to favor Super Valiant here.
You just,
I know, I just died, right?
Your point just trailed off there.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, Yeah, you were going somewhere.
I was going somewhere, but it didn't really work.
And you were trying to build up someone was going to beat them, and then you went, yeah, super values.
And then I was like, well, you know what? I probably don't want to say that on broadcast because I'll get called out for it. But it is possible, unrealistic, however.
Well, Snox on your screen has been magnificent in the opening few rounds, but it is very, very much early start for them. We'll see whether they can continue it. We're waiting for, looks like still maybe an issue on the left side. Looks like they're all in. All headsets are back on. The admins are still there, so we're waiting to see. Seven's now getting himself prepped, and then he's like, nope, okay, we're going to wait a little longer. How disturbing do you feel these sort of delays are? We've talked about this in the past. I mean, it's you just got in your zone. You're only 4 rounds in. Now, does this favour? Bear in mind, Penta are 3-1 up.
Yeah, I think
this favour Flipside.
Favours Flipside, of course. I mean, we've got Penta already off on a bit of a roll. Not a massive one. I mean, 3-1 is not an inescapable lead or anything like that. But Snox is looking good. He's looking comfortable, and this is going to just slow things down a little bit for Penta. Maybe give Flipside, if they can come in with this next round, pick up the next round fairly comfortably, gives them a good opportunity to get right back into this map. I mean, 3-2 then suddenly looks so much better than something like 4-1, for example.
Well, I mean, if I was a body language expert, I'm not. I could tell you the faces are very different between Penta, who are laughing and smiling and having a good time, whereas Flipside is sitting here very serene and serious and obviously down in the dumps. It does look like they're back in. So hopefully we're going to get the game on in a moment. I can see the flashes on your screen. So game is back underway. We are into the 5th round, I believe, here. 3-1 currently to Penta. And, of course, it does mean, sadly, because we've had the server restart, we do see the scores restart. But remember, we know that the Snox and Seven had a very good start at 6-2. We didn't see the last round, but here we go.
Yeah, FaZe also had a fairly reasonable first round as well. Blame starting things off here, though, for Flipside, and this is exactly what they need to come back into this map early on in the piece. They're at a bit of a deficit, but it's not a massive one at this point. 3-1. Flipside could very, very quickly come straight back into it. For now, again, it's NLS dropping early on in the piece.
Yeah, and right now for Penta, they really need to put a little less pressure on Snox and FaZe. If they're able to pick apart the rest of the team so quickly, it's going to be a lot of early 2v4, 2v5 situations for Penta, and even though you have 2 strong players, they can't ultimately be relying on these guys to make things happen.
Let's see if they're going to try and push through. You can see Virus holding, looking for the smallest pixel through that smoke. Snox, you can see, is likely to be the one pushing there, but I think footsteps heard there by Jin. Heard him come clear. Had a little shout as he backed up as soon as he was holding that little angle. Backs into catwalk, but Snox now moving over towards B site once again. It has been the favourable position for them so far. 40 holding that catwalk position over on A site. Hasn't really been tested just yet, but FaZe manages to find Vice. Is that the opening they needed with that sniper rifle? The first sniper rifle I think we're starting to see. Seven and FaZe both with it.
There's no one in the B bomb site right now for Flipside. We've got Jin, of course, here holding on the connector, but there's no one actually physically in the site to deny Penta if they do decide to go in there, which it does look like they want to go for. So Moon's going to get fairly easily actually into the site. A lot of ground being covered by him and a lot of angles being crossed off.
Yeah, Seven just got a full glimpse of Moon there. You can see he's trying to hold the sniper nest. He's got Snox directly below him. Is he going to try and peek with the flash? Tries to go for it. Bomb plant comes in. 37-second hold in a 4v4. Prime position for Penta now. It's Flipside time to turn to be aggressors.
Right now, Flipside, they played it pretty badly after they had that early number advantage, but now it is going to be Blame working his way on the flank here. Jin comes in for the support as well, but it's going to be Jin taking him down, and Penta, they're starting to fall apart here.
Screech really needed to get more done there, holding off on that rotate, and now it's just down to the one player, nothing he can do, and Flipside do come away with a very, almost easy retake, it looked like there. Just Penta not landing their shots.
The problem is, I mean, their back was basically caught out. Once they lost that back, they were openly exposed to flashes. Once you were exposed to flashes, you're screwed. You can't just keep 4 guys in that corner because you just get flashed out and they'll just push you, which is obviously the whole defensive issue. They're coming switching around as round gets back underway. So Flipside back in it. 3-2 currently, Penta in the lead as we see a potential aggressive push coming out of Flipside here as Moon manages to catch them out. NLS in there, and it has backfired horribly as 3 members of Flipside go down.
Yeah, just 7 left alive now here for Flipside, and he's going to need to come up with another round like he did earlier, which is not going to be the case. A little bit more difficult in this scenario, in a 1 versus 3. And so Penta, they come away with another round here, just biting back straight away against Flipside, saying, no comeback for you guys. We're going to be the dominant team in this first map.
It's one of those hard calls, right? As the shot caller, you're like, okay, we've just picked up the round, let's go aggressive and try and really punish them. But if it backfires like that, it can have the complete reverse effect of demoralizing you.
Yeah, and the big thing I've noticed too with PENTA, they've played it very smart. They almost have Moon and Creeds every single round. It looks like they're almost body blocking for Snox and FaZe to get in behind them. So even if they're going to lose players early on, PENTA, they know who they want to throw in as their entry fraggers.
Well, here comes Snox again. Gets a 1-for-1 there. Actually, no, FaZe was the one to get the 1-for-1, but regardless, NLS, 3 kills straight for him in mid, everyone coming in through the mid doors. He gets the 4th as well, just popping the head off Jin. What can you do against that?
Not a lot. When a player's like that, I mean, I recall back to, I hate harping on Super Valiant, but I recall Super Valiant playing on this map when we had Emzin basically doing rushes with a sniper rifle. That's once you start getting players that can start popping off like that. We've seen Snox doing it already. Now we're seeing NLS doing it. FaZe is doing it. This is a real problem for Flipside already developing.
Exactly. The individuals for PENTA are all stepping up right now. And I was a little bit critical of NLS earlier on in this map, where he did get picked off a couple of times early on in the piece, made the rounds a bit more difficult for PENTA, but he's essentially won a round there for PENTA now, so all's by the wayside. And we're back to happy times for NLS, and I guess the rest of PENTA as they're now up 5-2. Flipside need to get around here, and quick. A 1-for-1 trade is not going to be enough, nor is a 2-for-1, particularly when it favors PENTA.
Snox has been working so well in that, the connector push there. He's been coming out on top time and time again. Every time I see him push into that angle. One thing I would say between these two teams, they're not hanging around. They're not delaying. They're not using the time. They are.
I kind of like it.
I don't get me wrong. I love it. I love the aggressive players, but they have a long time. There's a 2.5-minute round timer, but they are pushing and fighting very early on.
I mean, part of the reason of that is really PENTA is on that attacking side, right? So they're the ones that are going to be dictating the pace of the game. They're the ones that's hitting every single shot, and you can see, again, evidence, FaZe picking up another kill. Up 5-2, why would you even want to slow down the game? You're completely destroying the flip side at this point. You might as well just keep on keeping on. And when it works, it works.
This is their first A-plan, I think, in, what, 7-8 rounds now coming up to. So it has been a long time coming. Just Vi's last man standing. That's a beautiful little catch onto Snox there. Now, it's still got a lot of work to do. 27 seconds on the timer. It's possible if he can catch Creeds, and he does. Now FaZe, he will reply quickly, though. And Vi's nearly going huge for Flipside. They need something like that right now. They need one of these players to step up.
Yeah, and right now, Flipside, their biggest issue is in these early round fights, they're not able to trade the way they need to. Snox consistently has been able to just go in and get at least 2, sometimes 3, and it's a deadly way to start off these rounds for Flipside. But another thing to keep in mind is Black Widow is historically a blacklist-sided map, so they do have a little bit of an advantage here, but Flipside, they could easily bring it back when things go the opposite way.
PENTA losing a lot of HP early on in the piece here. You can see Snox down below half. Moon almost a one-shot here, or essentially is a one-shot. So that's a slight advantage that Flipside do have coming into this. I mean, a couple of well-placed grenades might do the trick.
They've finally slowed down. Finally. I think, as you mentioned,
due to that HP.
I think, like you say, you just mentioned well-placed nades. I think he's definitely stopped them dead in their tracks, and this time they're going to try and challenge it to B side. Jin catches one early off. He's been struggling here on the defense, but this time it looks like he's going to go huge. Gets himself a triple. NLS tries to peek around the side, and Vice quickly stops him dead in his tracks. NLS will go down, and FaZe now the last man in a 1v4. C7 gets a little peek. 7 tries to pop the scope off. Not going to work out for him, and he's going to get caught out by FaZe. That nade could be on point if they try and push on through.
This is doable still for FaZe. There's 3 very low HP players actually for Flipside. The unfortunate scenario though is the bomb. It's not in a good spot for him, and that was a pretty critical shot. If he would have hit that, turn it into a 2v1, that makes the job so much easier. But now his position has been given away. He swapped back to the AK, but he's been spotted out. They know where he is. Easy kill there for Vi's. And Flipside come away with another round. Now, I want to say I wasn't particularly impressed by that push actually out from PENTA. The initial push onto the B bomb site, it did seem like they kind of went in one by one, where it seemed a little bit uncoordinated. There was no one really there to trade off that initial pick, and then they kind of followed one by one, and eventually all got picked. Fell like flies.
6-3 first half, though, is decent performance, certainly from PENTA, looking very strong on the opening. Quick, aggressive play. Flip side, you can see they tried to switch it up. They tried to go aggressive, but it kind of backfired them every time they tried to do it. What do we see Flipside are going to have to switch around here? Because now they're on the attack. Now they get a little bit of an advantage, as you said earlier on. But Snox is connector play was so strong, it seemed for me in there, and it was basically giving them options. They did only get one A plant in there, though. They did only go for A plant once. They were pressuring B all the time.
I think for Flipside going into the second half, they have to be ready for how FaZe and Snox play on this map. And FaZe is notorious for going in alone for picks early on his global risk half. He's not afraid to push up mid or push up catwalk alone with that and go for the early pick. And I think if they're not ready for that, it could be a devastating match to go all the way to PENTA. But if they're ready for it, I think PENTA could run into trouble if they lose either of those guys early. They could run into a lot of problems.
Yeah, well, that's the problem sometimes with the aggression on the defensive side is if you do drop that player, it kind of denies the possibility of having sort of a 3-2 split on the bomb sites or a 2-1-2 split, 2 in each bomb site, 1 in mid or something like that. Makes the rotations much more difficult for the defensive side as well. So generally speaking, if it's sort of like a 4v4 even, that's going to favor the attackers because they're going to enter a bomb site 4v2, 4v1, something like that. And the defenders aren't really going to be able to take the numbers game as easily as they would have otherwise.
Yeah, and looking at that second half as well, I think it's really going to come down to Flipside and how they can execute on the B bomb side. If they go A, they know they're going to run into long-range picks trying to come out from FaZe or Snox, but my guess is they're not going to play either of those guys towards B on the side of PENTA. They really want those guys in more mobile positions, so if they can have a solid B execution, I can really see Flipside working their way back into this one.
Here we go then. Flipside starting out on Blacklist this time. Global Risk 4, PENTA on the defense. 6-3 the score in the first half. Let's see who's going to be the first to 10. PENTA, if they can pick up a good couple of early rounds, they're going to be off and running. But if Flipside pick up a couple of early rounds, PENTA suddenly going to have their backs against the wall. Nades rain through. Jin's going to try and push. He's going to find NLS early on. He manages to drop on down. That's a good start for Flipside now as they put pressure over towards that B side.
Bit of an off angle here for Creeds, and that could catch Flipside off guard. He's going to come pushing through, hits the first shot. He's going to be challenged by 40 as well. Gets a lot of damage across there, so he's done his job, even if he does go down here, being backed up well by FaZe as well. It's a great passenger play there for PENTA. Looking good in this first round, but Blame, he's taking control of mid, goes right wrapping into the B bomb site, gets a kill. In saying that though, PENTA just goes one better. Every single time we see a trade out from Flipside, PENTA is there waiting for it.
Seven's going to have to go massive here. He gets Snox challenging him, and Snox will take him down. So, first round goes the way of Flipside. It was a very good start. Jin really got the ball rolling there.
Yeah, right now it's really going to come down to what PENTA can do to close this one out. Flipside, they've really been predictable at this point, but they're almost playing a little bit too safe here. They had the early pick in the last round, but they weren't able to capitalize on it. They almost pulled back and allowed for Snox and FaZe to rotate in and grab those one-off frags that they normally do. So I think Flipside, once they get the advantage, they need to be more aggressive if they want to come back into this one.
Especially when Snox seems to be on his game. For Snox and FaZe, you can see 2 frags once again in the opening rounds. And this is what we were talking about, right? You know, if Flipside picked up the first couple of rounds in the second half, then sure, they'd be back into it. But if PENTA pick up this round now, you're suddenly looking at 8-3. Suddenly it's like, we're getting very close to that 10 rounds, and Flipside's confidence will be dropping very quickly.
Absolutely, especially with that kind of aggressive start that PENTA did come away with here in this second half. Again, we're going to see NLS pushing in through a smoke. Doesn't get a kill there, but he does buy enough time for Creeds to come in and get a double. Snox gets one there as well. Flipside are in all sorts at this point. Luckily, they're going to be able to trade back, pull it back to a 2v2, but again, it's always PENTA making these plays and then Flipside being forced to react.
2 experienced players back alive still. Seven and Vise. They've been here many times. Vise finds one, and now it's FaZe. Old teammates facing off against each other, as they so often do. As FaZe is going to be peeking. Vise, the other side of that connector, is going to be coming in towards Catwalk very, very soon. You can see him hopping along. Looks like he's going to back off. Seven's about to peek it straight into the scope. FaZe catches him, but he doesn't get the frag onto Seven there. The nades bounce out. That should do huge damage, but FaZe, he's forced away. Seven goes for the spray, and he will catch him in the end there on Flipside. Such a vital, vital round there as they take it 7-4.
And that was a really smart play from Seven. I don't know if you guys noticed, but he jumped around the corner onto the little ledge on Catwalk, allowing him not to get body shot down and forcing that arm into a really difficult position. And I think that was a huge benefit for him to be able to close out that round. But already PENTA looking strong in the next.
Yeah, and unless he's just unbridled aggression right now out on this B bomb site, continuing to push and continuing to be a thorn in the side of Flipside. Everyone on Flipside just dropping right now. As PENTA, they weren't too pleased with how that last round did go. They've decided to change things up a little bit again here. Should be an 8-4, and indeed it will be. NLS having a much better second half than the first half.
Yeah, well, just as you see PENTA, Flipside pick up a round, it goes straight back against them. And PENTA, quick round there. Are they going to push the aggression now? Are they going to go push out? Doesn't work out. FaZe gets taken down early on, tried to go aggressive, but look at this. Flipside picking up kill after kill after kill, and suddenly Moon will get taken down, and that was a very, very fast round. I wonder whether PENTA would try and go aggressive, and it backfired horribly.
Again, we saw 2-7 reading FaZe so well in these positions. He knew that he likes to peek aggressively alone, caught him, and if FaZe keeps going for these, he could put his team in a pretty bad situation quickly.
Yeah, just a little bit one-dimensional really from PENTA so far. Every single round we've seen them do essentially the same thing. Perhaps this time it's going to be fairly similar. I mean, they're continuing to put that aggression out. This time it hasn't really been too much of a problem for either team. Admittedly, NLS is down relatively low. I mean, Moon hasn't even been able to get involved in this second half at all for PENTA, so something needs to change up.
Gets the early spot, didn't work out so well for him though, and Blame goes big there, pushes through, can't quite get Creeds down though. Creeds manages to knock him down, didn't have the support actually, but very aggressive, so aggressive his team wasn't really following through, but 40 will come through. Snox, the last man, trying to peek around the side. Moon's going to be rotating in, but he's a little late, and Snox will get taken down. Now, 2v1, 7 low on hit points, it's doable. It's
a very slow rotate there out from PENTA. I mean, we saw Creeds just dancing around in that B bomb site for so long, and still no one came to back him up. Now Moon has the potential here to clutch out a 1v2, but he needs to check his left. Surely saw the gun, but no. 7 is the first one to find the frag there, and that puts Flipside now finally with a couple of rounds in a row.
So, have they unlocked the PENTA defense? You were talking about how they were fairly static. Do we feel they've maybe sussed them out? It does take a couple of rounds to start checking things out. Jin was being very aggressive, and this time it backfired. You can see them setting up here down long A. It's not going to quite work out there. They're going to rotate back. This would be the first long A push I think I've seen from Flipside as well so far.
Right now, it's definitely a good time to bring it out, but it looks like they may actually rotate off and go for the B. I think they're just trying to fake and get the rotation to come over because they know the first guys to rotate, it's going to be FaZe and Snox. They want to go for those aggressive frags, so if they can fake A properly and go for a fast B hit, it's going to put all the pressure there onto NLS and Creeds. And Creeds, he's really been the one holding things down, but they have to be careful of this close corner position.
NLS getting caught. He does manage to get himself one, but it was less than he'd hope, I think. 40 and Blame coming straight through. Creeds getting taken down, and B-side is carved wide open. Now just Snox and Moon in a 4v2. They're going to try and play it as a pair. They do get into B-side first, and I think Flipside are backing off for a rotate here. Blame goes for the peak. Moon's shot just wide.
Snox is in mid, though.
Yeah, I mean, they've given the information away right now, so why just not rotate back to A? And I think that's exactly what they're doing. They've read my mind. Either that or I've read theirs, I'm not sure.
No, they're committing to the B bomb side, and Snox is going to come in here. He's lost his teammate, but he still has the potential. Ooh. Not quite enough, though. There's still 2 players alive for Flipside.
I got to be honest, I question that. I mean, brute forcing your way in there. You knew that there were 2 defenders in there.
Particularly against Snox.
Yeah. You want it, when it, a 4v2, you've got, God, they had like a minute and a half on the clock. Split it down to 1v1s. Like, either make them commit 2 on one bomb site or make 1 on each bomb site, in which case you're in a 4v1. It's a perfect position.
And now it's going to be up to PENTA to really recognize where Blame goes in these early round picks. He's been getting double kills round after round now. If he can keep that up for Flipside, we could see a tie fairly quickly here, but right now, looks like Blame, he's just going to be solo holding for the long A push, and Flipside, they may try to drown down the clock this time around.
Well, the party's livening up here in Katowice by the sounds of it. I think someone's got the bongo drums on the go. I'm not too sure. Either way, 7 is going to push through, and this could even things up. If they can find Creed, you can see he's tucked down low, flashed out. Going to catch a glimpse on Vize, but Vize will come out on top, and now FaZe, who's tucked in the corner, will not be able to get involved. Still, 5 on 3. Moon, low, Vize, low. They're pushing on B.
Yeah, FaZe only able to get 1 there as well. So, again, it'll come down to the rotation of Snox and Moon. The grenades being flung into the connector there just to keep them at bay. And Snox, he'll be able to get 1 onto 7. But, again, just overwhelmed by the numbers of Flipside.
Here we go. All square. Well, Kyle, what has happened? PENTA have collapsed.
I think right now the biggest weakness for PENTA has been their rotations. They're very delayed and they're almost never together in these situations. They were just trying to go for solo picks even on their retakes, and I think PENTA, they're going to have to play a bit more uniform if they want to shut down these pushes from Flipside.
Seven Nation Army's about to
I
come
don't
in,
even know what's going on.
Oh, I think someone's got excited on the mic. Might want to turn that PA down a little bit in the distance there. But anyway, this is the beauty of expos when there is multiple mics. I feel like we're at Gamescom, right, boys? I feel like we're at Gamescom. Should we join in? Should we join in?
Whatever.
Anyway, flip side. This is 8-8, boys. This is tense. And now, finally, Kyle, they've decided to slow down at last.
And that's what they needed to do all along here, Penta. They were just getting a bit too greedy, and now they just have to put the pressure back on the flip side here if they want to close this one out. I mean, flip side, they've somehow clawed their way back into this one, and it's really going to put a lot of pressure on Penta to actually have a solid hold this time around. But Moon, he has to be the most careful. He's been consistently getting caught very early in these rounds, along with Creeds in these early positions. But I think if Penta can play this one safer, they may have a chance, because flip side, they're going to be forced into a fairly late push.
It's a very different style between the two. Like, think of Penta, they were pushing this connector where Snox is right now. Snox obviously doing it every single time. This time, not really getting pushed there. It's just a straight B brute force almost coming out of flip side every round.
FaZe just watching the A long angle with that sniper. No real presence being shown from flip side on either side of the map, actually, at this point. So Penta, they don't really have too much information, which could be said to be an advantage here for flip side, but on the flip side of that coin, flip side don't really have that much map control, and there's only 40 seconds left in this round. So they're going to have to make a pretty quick push into one of these two sites. It does seem like they're defaulting back over to B. Now Creeds does spot them out. The rotation should be quick here. There's actually 3 players stacked on the site. NLS gets 2, Creeds another, and there's just too many players in that B bomb site from Penta. Flip side not able to deal with it well enough.
Just didn't catch a glimpse. I think it was Snox that was tucked in the corner there. Nobody really checking it. They were going for the wide swing to get the guy in the left-hand side, just ignoring the guy in the right, because again, as you mentioned, they hadn't really peaked. They hadn't really shown themselves, so they had no information of where defensive positions were. They'd thrown pretty much all their utility early on, so they were kind of down to nothingness effectively. So Penta get themselves the 9th round. Match point for them. Or will we see overtime?
It's tough to say, but I think Penta's going to be able to close this one out. They finally figured out what they need on this defensive half. FaZe gets the opening pick as well. Jin goes down, and really it's going to put all of the pressure on flip side in this situation to really answer with a counter pick of their own.
40, they're looking at swinging out long A here. Like we were talking about earlier, they haven't really challenged it too much. Moon finds one head, gets a second, and Connector is very much there. Snox coming with the support now. 40 and Vice, who were pressuring long A, are suddenly left in no man's land effectively as they're back at spawn with really nowhere to go.
This is a pretty tough ask now for 40 and Vice. Neither of them have had an absolutely stellar map at this point either, you know, so you can't even put any stock in a massive individual play. Yeah, it's possible, but there's no past history, at least in this map, for either of those two players being able to get too much done. Penta, pole position now to close this one out, 10 and 8. Perhaps a little bit closer than we would have expected after the end of that first half, but now looking to be having a fairly comfortable round. 40 has spotted out Snox there, but no kill. It's good enough for Penta. Unfortunately, Snox does eventually go down, but there's a trade. That's fine and dandy for Penta at this point.
Yeah, Moon pushes through, FaZe gets him, and it is, in the end, 10-8 to Penta. They do take it. Now, I've got to look towards probably that second from last round where everything slowed down. Would you put that down to Penta just backing up defensively and staying in their spawns, or would you put that down to flip side not being the aggressor and not really gaining much information, because obviously they came swinging into B side, tried to bull rush effectively that it worked so well, but unfortunately they were just running straight into a hail of bullets as 3 members of Penta were already there.
Yeah, I think Penta did a great job of finally adapting in those final 2 rounds, and I think it put even more pressure on the flip side, because consistently the later they wait to take these sides, flip side hadn't been doing so well, and I think they finally realized that going for the aggressive picks early on their defensive half just wasn't working for Penta, and they finally were able to anchor down and win those final 2 rounds.
They're finally coming into defense with 5 alive, right? That's the main part of it. You're not losing that early guy, which was, I think NLS was generally going early on, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was the one that did get picked off early the majority of the time there for Penta, in both halves actually, but I really think that Penta probably could have closed that map out a little bit earlier. We did sort of say, you know, they had a very good first half. It seemed like they were very slow to adapt in the second half. You know, they did take a long time to slow things down. As you guys have just said, once they did slow it down, then things kind of went relatively easily in their favor. So perhaps that adaptation is going to be maybe, or needs to be a little bit quicker here for Penta. particularly when they get later in this tournament, let's say when they get up against Super Valiant, if they're in a situation like that, you can't let someone like Super Valiant get that close because Super Valiant's going to then just come away with the map.
Yeah,
you need to adapt as soon as you can and take advantage of it.
Because momentum is such a big part of this. We did have a couple of big plays early on. Let's get some of them on your screen, of course. This one very early on, I think this was Snox going huge, and then Seven came out huge as well. He came swinging in, gets himself the quick triple. Snox instantly replied to that, picking up 4 in the next round. Some huge plays early on here.
Yeah, speaking of huge plays, I mean, I know we're still talking about Penta and Flipside right now, but I can't wait to see Super Valiant, because I think that's where we're going to get the real huge plays coming out for now. But yeah, for me, if we look at the individual players, I have to say Snox, I think, was probably the pick of the bunch. FaZe had a really good second half as well for Penta there, but I think Snox across the board was quite good on both halves.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Snox was the man with the plan here and really helped them close that out. But FaZe also, on those rotations, I felt like he wasn't necessarily going off a lot, but he was always getting them that man advantage when they had to rotate over.
Yeah, absolutely. It's worked out very well for them. So it sets us up, obviously. Neither of these teams are out of the tournament yet, but it does mean that Penta will progress. They're going to be into the winner bracket. And of course, it does mean we're going to be seeing who they will face. Matt is ready on stage to introduce the teams.
Thank you very much, Lee, with Kyle and Jordan there. I've got FaZe with me from Penta, who make their way up in our bracket to the winners side of things. Happy with that? Good start to the day?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we started good at SPL, but then we should have closed it out early on the Global Risk side. So yeah.
6-3 at the end of the first half. It was all going very much Penta's way, and you were quite chilled out, as the guys were saying, as they were casting. We could see that you had smiles on your faces. You were clearly enjoying yourselves. So that 8-all and nearly stepping into overtime after that was a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah, I mean, we need to adapt faster there as Global Risk. I mean, when we win 6-3 SPL, we need to just close it out there, and we just need to adapt faster there.
You guys have played together for a while. You've got players who know Flipside as well. It was a bit of a surprise. Is it just a start of the day thing? Were you just needing to warm up and get match ready?
Yeah, I mean, the first game is always hard, but the next game is probably going to be against SV. And yeah, that's definitely going to be a harder match there.
You had rotations going on, a lot of solo play going on. It wasn't maybe the sort of cohesive Penta working together as a team, at least not for the whole match.
Yeah, I mean... Again, a question, please?
I was saying that tactically, it felt like as we got into the later stages of that match, you guys ended up playing more individually than as a team.
Yeah, I mean, we know our individual skill is pretty high, but sometimes our team just doesn't work together, but that's what we need to work on, so yeah.
Well, you'll have the next game to work on that while that's happening. You just mentioned in the winners bracket you're expecting to play Super Valiant Gaming, who are the reigning world champions and here from China, but their match, which will be next, first they've got to play XQ, and you were saying to me just now, that's not a team to be completely looked over.
I mean, we just practiced against them before this match against Flipside, and they look pretty good, so I hope they can make it a close game.
I hope they can make it a close game as well, and then we'll see who's up against you. Congratulations to Penta. They go through to the winners bracket. XQ against Super Valiant Gaming. That's going to come up next here, so don't go far. We'll get those teams ready, and we'll bring you the next game in the CROSSFIRE IEM Expo Invitational 2018.